Hey, hey, hey.
Let me turn the channels on before You already did it.
Uh-huh.
Did you do it right?
I don't know. I'm a smart
Well,
boy.
don't do it if you don't know what you're doing now.
I just like pushing buttons.
Are they on?
Really.
Did you look?
Looks like it's on. I didn't hit record. Oh, you want me to check if YouTube is on? Yeah, okay. I'll check.
Yeah, I'm looking. All right. Yes. TikTok's on and YouTube's on. Hey, that's like a record. TikTok is connected like the last 3 times that we've been on. It's like a record. Usually I have to recertify it every time.
It says that 3 Facebook channels are on, but I don't believe it.
It says what?
It looks like 3 Facebook channels are on, but I don't believe
no,
it.
they're just spinning. If you look underneath them, they don't say connected.
Oh, okay.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce us.
Hey, look. The chat worked.
Oh. Yep. There it goes. All right. Well, welcome back to Unfiltered Real Talk with Christine and S. Michael. Hello. Welcome. How is everybody? Hope you're all doing well. I'm good. How are you, Mike?
I'm not unwell.
You're not unwell? What a way to say that. I'm not unwell. Okay. Well, that's good. That's good. So before we get started, I want to say that you can get a hold of me by sending an email to Realtalkwithchristine, CHRISTINE, @gmail.com. And if you want to reach Mike,
You can reach me at Shitlesspodcast@gmail.com.
every time he says that, I'm like, ah, you cussed.
My virgin ears.
So, guys, it is Tuesday night. We are here, as we are every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And we are going to talk about relationships some more, as we always do. Tonight, do you know what we're talking about, Mike?
Yeah, we're talking about kids, right?
About what?
Kids?
Kids? I mean,
Families?
yeah, we're talking about the family dynamic and how it's changed from generation to generation, and how kids changed the marriage and what that meant 50 years ago, what it means today. Does it mean something different? Does it affect everybody? There's a lot to actually talk about here. How does it affect the relationship? Yeah.
Whether it's some marriage or you're dating someone, if there's kids involved or their family.
Yeah. There's lots of levels to this, actually. When I first thought of the topic, I thought, can we really talk about it? And then I started thinking about it and I'm like, oh my gosh, it actually goes on and on and on and on when you think about it. And I have quite a few things to talk about from personal experience as examples of the differences between generations and the way that it affected the marriage, or the way that it affected the way you raised your kids. And then I realized, so then I got a hold of Mike and we were talking about it. And I prefaced the whole thing by saying, now don't shoot it down immediately because it's going to sound really boring, but I don't think it is. I think that if you listen, if you hear me out, and so we started talking about it, and granted, he didn't talk much. I don't even know if he really listened a whole bunch.
I told you I had just woken up from a nap.
I was going to say, because apparently he had been sleeping. He had been snoozing a little bit while he was waiting for his next client.
Yeah.
Kat, don't do that. I told you. Sorry. I told you. He tried to jump on the table and the table is full. I told him. He fell right down. Anyway, I was explaining to Mike, the topic and the way I saw it as far as what we could talk about. And the more I talked about it, the deeper I got. And I'm like, and then we can talk about this and you can talk about this. And actually, now that I'm talking about it, I feel like that this topic could probably be talked about for days on end, really. Because once you get married, or, some people don't do the whole legal thing, but they're still spiritually, married. But once they make that full-time, long-term, lifetime commitment to each other, shit changes, which is why a lot of people, especially if it's the second time or the third time, they don't want to do it because they're like, I really like our relationship the way it is. What could marriage change except to make it worse? You know what I mean? To ruin it, to ruin what we have. Why do we need to get married? So I think that's a lot of the reason why marriage can be very challenging, and not everybody deals with it very well. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight.
Like marriage or kids and family?
I just explained.
Okay.
Everything I just said. We are talking about. Do you want me to say it again? The
No.
dynamics.
Yeah. Okay. No, I just when you landed on marriage, I'm like, is that like the main drive of what we're doing, or no? It ties in. It ties
in. Because the crux of it, the driving point of what we're looking into is how marriage changes a relationship, how responsibilities change a relationship, how kids, family change a relationship, how the dynamics have changed over the generations, the whole thing.
Yeah, well, and I think that's one of the reasons why, when we sat down and started working on your compatibility list the other day, which has yet to be revealed, but I loved it. And one of the big questions was kids or no kids, right? At the beginning, you want to establish whether the person you're dating or maybe, having future dates with, and who knows where it might lead, if they want to have kids someday, if they do have kids. And there wasn't a whole lot
about the fact that
there,
that is a question you need to ask before you get married. And then Mike said that, and I agreed. But then I also said, but even when you talk about it before you get married, once you're married, one of you might, or both of you might change your mind. Hopefully, if one of you changes your mind.
Yeah, my oldest daughter was famously said, I can't wait to not have kids. And then 3 years later, she's having kids. It's like, the maternal instinct is a thing. Biology is a thing.
But it isn't for everybody. And some girls, and men, boys and males and females, cannot feel that paternal or maternal tug, and they think it's just because they don't have a significant other, so it'll happen as I get older and when I'm ready, and it never does. And that's also something you have to talk about, and you really need to listen. People are famous for wanting the person that's sitting in front of them, and we talk about this all the time. I want you so much because you tick off so many boxes that I'm willing to risk that your maternal or paternal instinct is going to kick in after we've been married for a while. You fall deeper in love with me. We start seeing our friends having kids. It's going to happen. And it doesn't. And then they feel duped. And it's like, hold on. You are not duped. You, if anything, duped me.
Yeah.
You accepted what I said, and then you changed it and said,
well, and it's like the conversation we had last time about, never say never, never say always, because exactly. One thing's for sure, you never know how you're going to act when something pops up that's that life-changing, including just even feelings or emotions or even logic that clicks in your head later in life that, oh, I really do want to have kids. Holy crap, I never thought I would.
Yeah, and it works both ways. Maybe a woman decides, maybe she ends up having a oops pregnancy, and then she loses the baby, which is very common in first pregnancies.
Yeah.
And then she decides, you know what? I really wanted that baby. I really wanted that baby. I really wanted to be pregnant. And so now she has to tell the husband, guess what? Everything's changed for me. That happens. That's probably, unfortunately, very common. And it's also very common for the man to say, but it didn't change for me. I don't want to say that I wanted you to have a miscarriage, but I wasn't like overly disappointed that moved out of our lives because I never wanted it in the first place. And then the marriage falls apart, because one of them changes their mind, but it happens. Mr. Fix-It, the topic is family dynamic once a relationship, moves into marriage and starts having a family, and how that can affect a relationship, as well as how it's changed over the generations. Because there's a few things that I have like little stories, and I'm sure Mike does too, of the way our parents were, the people that were that were born in the 30s and 40s, how they raised us versus how we raise our kids, and maybe the way that it shaped the way we raise our kids. And the same goes now our kids, how are they doing it different? And I think it's very interesting. As a matter of fact, I find it so interesting. I just want to talk about it now.
The generational thing?
Yeah, the generation.
Okay. And we do have to admit, though, right, that generation and generalization have the same root. Not everything applies to everybody in that generation, obviously, okay? There's always
100%.
exceptions that prove the rule. But
100%.
sociology wouldn't be a science if you couldn't make generalizations about large groups of people based on data.
Because what I'm going to say is not the most positive stuff regarding the older generation, but it certainly did not apply across the board. There were a lot of families that were extremely functional. Well, and even from an outsider, you might say they were dysfunctional. Maybe they were a bit codependent. Maybe they were a bit overprotective. There's a lot of things we could say about them. They might have actually been dysfunctional, but they were dysfunctional in a much better way than we were dysfunctional. They sat down every night and they had dinner with their kids, and they wouldn't let them do this and they wouldn't let them do that, and they micromanaged them, and and all the things that definitely occurred in the 50s and 60s and 70s, but it wasn't the norm through that generation, I don't think. And I think if we were to take a poll and do it all right, and statistically, we would probably hear more stories of emotional disconnection.
Yeah, and I think especially for men, it was more of a, kind of a cliche almost, but art imitates life. And if you look back through, movies and film and books and TV shows from that time period, the men did not tend to be very loving towards their children. Any kind of emotion other than occasional anger was suppressed. So that kind of was the norm. And when we're talking about children and families, that's how a lot of the next generation were raised, was with fathers who focused primarily on work. When they came home, they expected things to be a certain way. And when it came to interacting with their children, it wasn't about, getting down on their level. And I understand how you feel, and empathy and all the things that we kind of later as a society decided, these are kind of important things for kids to have,
And as most things go,
at that time.
Yeah, as most things go, it was one end of the spectrum to the other end. And some people have learned the happy medium, but a lot of people, especially the current generation, have gone all the way to the other side and, are just like...
Let their kids run around screaming in Walmart.
Yeah, they're just as lost as their grandparents or great-grandparents were, but just, in a different way. And everything you said, 100%, I think that the kids, the people that were born in the 30s and 40s they were born to people who were extremely unemotional, extremely detached. They lived in a world where that's how you were, because that's how you got along. It was a really rough world. It wasn't easy. They went through depressions. They went through, the things that they went through, wars, all kinds of new stuff for that generation. And it was very, very hard. And so they learned to be detached, and they raised their kids that way too. And it's not that they didn't love them. They just didn't know how to show them. They also, I think that there was a big fear of happiness and love and,
false hope. Like, look, life is short, life is shit, and soon it will be over. Okay. I'm not going to lie to you.
And, and you were coming from a time when, the average family didn't have much, say, for Christmas or birthdays or anything like that. And they just didn't honestly have a lot to celebrate in a lot of that time. And so when they raised our parents, if we have parents that were born at that time, our parents most commonly were raised by detached parents, and they were usually lopsided as well. Those parents who were detached could show love towards another child, but not them. That was real common as well. There was always like the one child, the golden child that proved to you that oh my gosh, my parents do have emotions. They actually can.
And then there's also the black sheep, and you get the shitty emotions for that one.
Right. So then they come to us and they raise us they're a little better than our parents because now they're in the hippie era, right?
Right. Free
And so
love,
yeah, free love and everything. So
Dr. Spock.
yeah. So what I found, and this is interesting because, and Mike and I both were raised on military bases, military housing. So I'll bet you his experience is very similar to mine. What you saw was parents of that era raising kids in the 60s and 70s and 80s, but it started changing in the 80s, 60s and 70s. They raised you unemotionally except towards each other. They partied, they went to parties, they entertained a lot, they went out a lot, they left the kids alone, they left the kids at home, the kids were to be seen but not heard, and then everything is great as long as you followed the rules. Parents were very, they didn't say I love you, they didn't get all mushy, and they raised you. They did what they did because that's what you do. You have a child, you raise them, and you send them on their way to live their life. They're done, they're 18, they're out of the house. It was real common for a father to say, when they turn 18, they're gone. That's I'm done. I've done my job. I remember my mom told me to my face that me and my brothers, when it came right down to it, we were not the priority in the house. Her and her husband, not my father, her and her husband were what mattered. That they were the priority.
Yeah, say that to a generation or a millennial, like the marriage comes first, not the kids.
Yes, because the marriage
lose their minds. They'll call CPS. Like,
yeah,
how can you say that to your child?
Exactly. But that is how a lot of parents felt back then. It's like, you are our duty. We feed you, we clothe you, we give you what's necessary. Not all parents, like Mike said, it's not a generalization.
No, but the goal was to prepare you for life because life is hard.
Yeah, and they did it mostly detached, just like their parents did.
So
and
look at what Mr. Fix-It wrote. He said, hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men, right? Because there's a lack of adversity. There's nothing, building their character, right? And then weak men then go on to create hard times. And the cycle continues. And you can see evidence of that in everything from the dawn of time on.
Yes, because you need the friction. You need friction in your life to keep you aware, keep you.
Yeah, the cliche that when I was your age, we walked to school uphill both ways. There's a little bit of truth to that.
I mean, what do they say? They say that you can't know good times unless you know hard times, right? Bad times. How are you going to know a good time staring you in the face if you haven't had a bad time? I mean, it's true.
Yeah, it's often expressed like you don't know how good you have it.
Yeah.
My dad used to beat me with a belt, and my grandma used to beat me with a switch. And
my dad's belt had spikes on it, so yeah, whatever. The point is, nobody. It was very common to be lacking emotions, lacking affection. And their excuse was that's how their parents were, but we're doing better because my parents didn't show us a loving relationship.
Yeah.
And you have parents who by everything possible, we're going to stay together or whatever. And they didn't necessarily do that. Yeah. Mine did. I know yours.
And so even though my dad was in the military and, he was born in the 50s, actually, both my parents were born in the 50s. They still kind of caught the tail end of that whole, because their parents they were from the Depression era, very detached, very harsh punishments. This is for your own good. But then that turned into this hurts me more than it hurts you. We're going to do better than our parents did because we didn't like getting beat. We didn't like the detachment. And so there was that's when Leave It to Beaver came out and the Brady Bunch. And, the 50s and 60s were, like you said, it was a very different time. It's free love.
Leave It to Beaver was a very idyllic.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's what everybody
Brady
wanted.
Bunch. I mean, there's no family like that. Are you kidding?
Well, but the Brady Bunch was the 70s, and it was more about the blended family. So they were exploring the whole divorce situation, or not
Which
actually
was so,
divorced. They were widows.
risque, right, at the time.
Yeah, they were actually widowed, both of them.
But I'm talking more about the interaction between the parents and their kids. Ward would do the same thing as Mr. Brady. He would sit down with the kids, explain exactly what they had done was wrong,
but you could
and that
see
he still loves them even though he's disappointed.
But you could see the difference in the era. Ward was
So Ward, right? He's not going to show emotion. He's not going to empathize, but he will explain exactly. Yeah.
Mike could have fun with his kids and really joke around. So could Ward, but in a totally different way. Ward would play football or catch with his suit on, whereas Mike, would put a pair of shorts on. It was just you saw the difference in the era.
Sure.
In the generation.
Ward, I think you're being a little hard on the beaver. I love that joke.
Here's the thing, though. No, it was a very idyllic situation, a very idyllic home life, family life. And something else that I found was very, very common, and it's probably just common across the board with everyone, is that your parents, if they told the story, would say they lived like Leave It to Beaver. But better. That they had the disconnect. That you didn't. Now we did. We said when my dad was in town, because he's in the Navy, so he's always gone. When he was there, we sat down as a family every night, and my mom tried to make that happen when he was gone as well. And for the most part, we did. So we did the family dinners at the table, which most people did back then. It's just what you did. But that didn't mean that you had a great family life because you were capable of sitting at the dinner table, which is funny because nowadays they tell you one of the reasons why kids are so out of control and the family dynamic is missing is because
nobody sits around the dinner table anymore.
Yeah, but they did it back then. Everybody did it from the 1800s until the 1970s, probably. Everybody sat around the table as a family and ate. It was required. You never sat in front of a television. You didn't have the TV on. It just wasn't something you did.
Yeah, my folks gave up the ghost sometime around the mid 80s, but it definitely faded,
Yeah. So I find the generational differences interesting. I think that Mike and I, the way that we raise our kids was a direct product or a byproduct of the way we were raised with that disconnect. We decided, well, we're not doing that with our kids. Our kids are going to know from the start they are loved, and they're going to know what love is, and they're going to hear that word because that's what I didn't hear.
Right. And then our kids are either going to rebel against that or they're going to take it even farther. And so I love Mr. Physics' comment. I've dated women that place their grown kids priority over anyone else.
Yes.
And that's a thing,
That's what I'm talking about. One end of the spectrum to the other.
Adolescence, right?
It's crazy. My parents were like, we're what matters. The husband and the wife come before the kids. I mean, we're not going to let the kids die on the street, but until they're 18.
Right. But that's the thing, you're kicking them out at 18. But what he's saying, and it's common now with millennials and Gen Z, is you let the kids stay until they're 25, 26, 30.
Yeah, but I have an argument about that because I believe in the generational home. I think the generational home, I believe, is actually the reason we lost the family, because we stopped having generational homes. It became in our parents' time, kids started moving away from home. There was no more generational. It sort of went out with our great-grandparents. Our great-grandparents most commonly did live with our grandparents.
Well, and I think as we became more of less of an agrarian society, and rural areas became, built up into suburbs, that went away out of necessity because there's no longer a farm to tend to,
I agree to an extent, but actually, I mean, I really don't, because I believe generational homes are coming back. But again, it is out of necessity. I don't think it was the necessity of what you were saying, but it's coming back.
Then it was because you needed everybody to stick around because you need help on the farm, right? But now it's out of necessity because you can't afford to send your kids can't afford to live.
generational homes were not only on the farms. You had them throughout New York City. It was cultural. We had
Okay,
all these
and
different
that was
immigrants.
the next thing I was gonna bring up was how Italian families when I lived in
Yeah,
Italy, very generational,
yeah,
very common in
that's
Hispanic
right.
families, very cultural, yeah.
And those families, a lot of them are still generational. We Americans in our parents' time are the ones that moved away from the family and said, no, we don't need that. And so that was what they expected their kids to do. You're 18, you leave. You don't need to stay here. You don't need to live here. Now, when I had my kids, I said I raised them from the time they were born. And I don't know why, but I did. And maybe it's because I didn't really have close relationships with any grandparents. But I raised my kids to believe in generational homes. I wanted them to live in the same home with me. And I got that for a great extent. Like my oldest granddaughter her and her family lived with us until she was 10. And she had 4 other siblings by the time they left. They were gone here and there, but they were mostly with us. Anyway, I always wanted a generational home. I think generational homes are very important to the family structure. I think it's important that kids learn how to deal with elderly people. They learn to appreciate them. I think that they've lost all of that. And now parents are so stuck up their kids' asses, excuse me, but it is, as Mr. Fix-It said, it is only about the kids. There's no balance anymore. How do you date a woman who it's just about the children? I remember hearing one man say that he was dating a woman and they were both in their 50s and her son from college was coming home. They'd been dating for like 4 months. He's coming home from college. He's going to be there for like 3 months because it's summer. And she tells him, by the way, you can't come to the house.
I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah, but that's crazy. That's crazy. And he thought so. He's like, what is there more to this? He didn't say that to her, but he's talking to me saying, is that weird? And I'm like, that is weird. And, maybe there's more to it. Maybe she's hiding a husband. I don't know.
Or maybe it's more common than people think, it's, adults
I
from a
think it
certain
may be.
generation, even a certain culture, kind of putting their kids ahead of everything else,
Yeah. And Mr. Fix-It, what he just said, his son, his wife, and baby live in his basement because they can't afford to buy a home. That is, my son, daughter-in-law, and their child live with me, but it's not they live with me because we share expenses. They sold everything and moved to Florida to help me when my mother was passing away. My dad had just died. And so they gave up everything and moved in with me. When that happened, for me, as I said, I always wanted a generational home. So that was perfect. My mom was there. I was there. They were there. My granddaughter was there. That's a generational home. I loved it. And then I decided to move back to Indiana. And I said, do you guys want to move in with me? And eventually I may move out. I may have a relationship. I may move. You guys can buy the house from me. It'll just be between us. It'll be affordable. Sure. So we did it. We looked for a house together. We bought it. And funny thing, Mr. Fix-It, they live in my basement. No, they live in their
Listen,
their
your generation, it's so common
and
now.
now I am moving out. I am moving out and they are buying the house. So it worked, the way that it was supposed to. But I believe in generational homes. And I do believe that is one of the reasons that we've lost the family traditions is because we don't have that anymore. But having said that, the way that our kids are raising their kids, it's hard to say what's going to happen. My son says all the time to his daughter, he says, you're never leaving home. You're going to be 40 and you're going to be here. And he sounds just like me. So, maybe it'll come back. I don't know.
Yeah, and I told all my kids, you will always have a place here. I don't care, if you are broke or whatever, you always will have a place here. So don't even, we're not kicking you out ever. So,
and my parents were so disconnected and so not invested in us other than to feed us, house us, clothe us, that when I came to them at a certain age, which was well under the age of leaving school, they let me. I mean, there were caveats to it. I had to finish my education just in an alternative way. But they never would have held me to it. I did it on my own. But they never would have even raised a fuss if I had just not done it. But at least they asked. But they didn't even teach us how to drive. Never bought us a car. None of that stuff ever happened in our house. And that's pretty common in my age group. You know, when you hear a kid say, "Oh, my parents bought me my first car and my dad taught me to drive," it's like, you had a really great family. That's awesome. You know, I didn't have that. We stole the car. My brothers stole my parents' car out of the garage just to drive it, so that they could learn to drive. You know, my parents were on vacation. My parents went on vacation without us all the time. And they were off on a cruise or something. And yeah, my brothers stole the car and they learned to drive. So, yeah, pretty screwed up family. But we've talked enough about that. Let's move it into talking about when you have a relationship like Mr. Fix-It. And by the way, Mr. Fix-It, I see where you say they pay rent. Yeah. My kids, they pay their fair share as well. As they should, right? So when you have a relationship, whether it's like us, older, and so just today I was talking to my hairstylist and she said, "It is so funny. I was thinking about it yesterday. We've known each other for a couple of years, and where we are today compared to where we were 2 years ago is very odd." She's like, "We're both in relationships with men with children." And she's like, "Both of us said no children, no kids."
Yeah, well, Mr. Fix-It called you out on it like a few months
Yes.
ago when you still
Yes,
had the
he
other
did.
co-host.
When
It's
we
like,
got
wait a minute,
together.
Christine, I thought that you
Yes.
were never going to be in a relationship with somebody with a kid. That was a deal
And
breaker, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I'm not going to hide the fact that I said that. I said that 100%. I said that, but that just goes to show you when you find someone that checks off your major boxes, you start realizing what's important, what's not, and it is different. It is different when it's a co-parenting situation. You know, and that's what I was talking to her about. I'm like, you know, they have his kids, and it's 2 boys. And she only had 1 child and she's in college. So they have them like on Wednesdays and Thursdays and every other weekend. So when they have them, by the time they leave, they want their privacy. Then when they're gone, by the time they get them, they really want them back. It's a perfect world for them. They get their private time, but they also get the kids. So it's great. They have a good co-parenting relationship. She is responsible and takes care of them, which is an ideal situation. You don't have to
college. Like, is she college age, like late teens, early 20s?
Her daughter?
No, her.
No, her daughter is college.
Her daughter's in college. Okay.
Yeah, her daughter's in college.
That's what I'm saying. She did a hell of a job on your hair for a youngster like that.
Yeah, no, she is in her late 40s.
Okay.
But she didn't want any kids in the situation, obviously. Well, then she found this guy and he was like just so perfect for her. And it so happens he had 2 young kids. You make it work if it's worth making it work. And it's funny because, like I told her, it's like it means nothing. It means nothing. And Mr. Fix-It called me out on it when it happened with us. And I mean, at the time, you know, we were new, and all I could say is it doesn't seem to be the priority that I'm worried about right now. I don't know if it will matter at some point or not, but all I know is it's not, it's a non-thing. I thought it would be. It's not. Hey, I went out with a lot of men who were retired that had no children or at home. And not one of them made me a fraction of the happy, or I said that wrong, happy as Mike does. So, you know, like you're going to pass that up.
You know what? I get that all the time on social media, on my shit posting websites. Absolutely. And thank you. It is very expensive. Looks real, doesn't it?
Mr. Fix-It, we were talking about him getting it buzzed. The first picture I ever saw of him before we met, it was close shaved.
Yeah.
You know, it was like a military cut. And so that's the way I saw him. And so he was saying, "Would you want me like that?" I'm like, it's the first picture I ever saw of you. I loved it. I thought you
But
were
I'm
attractive.
enjoying the shit out of my second childhood right now. So
See, and I'm a 63-year-old woman who might be getting tired of the childhood. something to chew on.
okay, I'll remember that tonight.
I don't want to do anything with a child. Thank you very much. So, what happens when you're in a relationship and you get married or otherwise committed and children come into the picture? You know, does it always have to like change the relationship? I mean, yeah, obviously it has to, but does it have to be a bad thing? And how do you circumvent the bad? Is it possible? What is your experience? See, I didn't have any direct experiences because I was divorced. I was a single mom. And when I introduced a long-term boyfriend, and it was 6 years, you know, he helped me mentally a bit, you know, to make decisions and things, but I mean, and he helped financially only because, you know, we lived together towards after a while. But excuse me, but as far as being a parent, he wasn't. You know, my youngest got attached to him because he was only 3 when we got together. So, but it wasn't anything like permanent. It wasn't anything serious. So I never really had to worry about that dynamic until my third marriage. And we were married for 23 years. And my youngest was just turned 13. And my middle was just turned 15. And then the oldest was 18. And they all came with me. And immediately there was fun issues. The youngest refused to accept the man and did everything you can imagine that you ever saw in Parent Trap. The middle child, he was totally fine. He was fine with everything. The oldest ended up pregnant, and she came pregnant and didn't tell me. So we had a lot happen. He did not try to parent them until after the grandchild was born. And then his first stance against one of the kids to discipline them was my daughter. And he decided that he was going to kick her and the baby, my grandchild, out of the house for her transgression, which was disrespecting me because, I don't know, she got uppity with me or something. And he finally comes out of from under his rock and gets all blustery and loud, which he never does. And he tells her she's getting out. She's getting out. And I'm like, are you fucking insane? And he's like, don't do that. She has to leave. She has to, consequences. I'm like, oh, really? And she's taking my grandchild? And he's like, well, yeah, I mean, it's her kid. I'm like, excuse me. So my grandchild is going to sleep on the streets because they have nowhere to go. Are you insane? That is not happening. And I just told him, I'm like, you know, I would love to sit here and pretend like we're going to discuss discipline, but you have been hands off for over a year. And now you're going to stand and you're going to.
Yeah, that's classic step parenting fail 101.
No shit. And trust me, after that, he didn't even want to ever talk again. But that was his nature. I mean, his nature was to not talk. So it was very easy for him to use that as an excuse to never talk again. So I don't have experience with sharing discipline with a partner and having that really affect our life.
Well, guess what? You're going to get your chance. And what's funny is like, we don't know what it's going to look like. We have no idea yet. You know, I have a young son.
Yeah.
You know that I will have, you know, time with him regularly.
Yeah.
But what's that going to look like once he comes to our place and you are introduced into his life? And
yeah, because what everybody might not
behaviors,
know,
you know, he's got ADHD or whatever, you know, it's like, how's that going to look for us realistically? Am I going to discipline him, you know, properly to your satisfaction, like you would be satisfied disciplining him, or are we going to have different styles?
here's the thing. That is your son. He is not a baby. We are not co-parenting together and raising him. You already have your styles with him. And I would never try to
Older
tell you
than a
how to
toddler, Mr. Fix It.
I would never try to tell you how to do it. Although I know me, you know me, and in private, we will probably have a lot of discussions. And I would hope that you would entertain whatever I have to say. It doesn't mean you have to follow. You don't have to
No,
do
I'll
it,
tell you what,
but I would hope
absolutely,
that
and
you
I'll
would
tell
want
you
to hear it.
why. Because I've met your kids. I've talked to you at length about how you raised your kids. I am thrilled with your children. I love your kids. I think they like me. So it's like, why wouldn't
Well,
I
one of
want?
them adores you.
Yeah, so it's like, why wouldn't I want to get your input on, how I handle Ollie's,
But that's
upbringing
all it
and
would be.
issues.
Yeah. But that's all it would be. It would be my input. I would sit down and talk to you anytime. And I wouldn't, this is true. I wouldn't have a problem calling you out if I thought that you had done something. And if I saw something going
You really should
sideways really
stop giving
bad,
him alcohol after 8. Yeah.
if I saw something going sideways really, really bad that I knew you were going to regret because I know you, I would somehow get in between it without him, knowing what I'm doing. I wouldn't ever want him to think that I was parenting him over one, but I somehow, bad move, but that I would hope would never have to happen. And it would only be extreme. But yeah, I just don't see that
But that can definitely, and I understand your initial hesitancy and unwillingness to entertain the idea, that can definitely be a deal
yes,
breaker, right?
Mr.
For
Fix It.
one, at a certain point, I thought I was an empty nester from now on. At another point, it's like, how much freedom are we going to have if this person has a child? And then on top of that, what if this kid's a brat? What if this kid hates me? What if they're a problem
Well,
child?
the good news is you aren't going for full custody. Because the truth is that would be
That's only
different. I
half
mean,
good news.
well, I mean, I have to be honest. And Mr. Fix It, this is true. He's sitting there saying, I know darn good and well that if this guy darned in this game with a child 24/7, you might be saying it's different. And you're probably right. I probably would. This was a on again, off again situation. I knew that he didn't have him 100% of the time. And so that was much easier for me to accept it. And I also knew we would always have that off time to be together. It's just like what I was telling my hairdresser. You really learn to appreciate the time you have together. So, are we having trouble with the internet?
I think we are, because on my screen, you're freezing up, but I'm not sure how it looks on YouTube. So what you might want to do is pop out and come back in.
Why, you can't see me?
Okay, so now you're back to normal, but you were freezing up for a while there. I think it may be back to normal now.
Yeah, you were frozen on my end. I don't know what it's going to look
Okay.
like on the. Let's see.
Yeah, and Mr. Fix-It said he lost sound for a second. So hopefully we're back.
Is everything good, Mr. Fix-It? Let's see. Christine, it's so hard to watch your spouse or significant other discipline or not discipline when you think they should, or when you think they should, or how they should. And your idea of communicating is great in theory. Well, I mean, it's not just theory. I had a 23-year marriage, and even though he was hands off, there's a reason he was hands off. And we did have moments where we absolutely discussed, because I insisted, discussed what we should do. So it may sound like theory, and okay, for Mike and I, it is theory. We haven't done it. I did it with my ex. So we'll just have to see how it works, with Mike and me. Who knows? I don't know. It's all theory right now. But it is has been proven to work for
And we've
myself.
talked about it at length, and we'll continue to brainstorm. And what'll it be like? And what if this happens? What if that? And as it becomes more real, of course, it'll be more intense. You see, Mister Fix's latest
Yeah,
comment. Yeah,
Walmart
we're upgrading to Target soon
Yeah.
when we get our new
Um,
place. Yeah.
I still say that it makes a difference when you have the week off. It makes a difference when you don't have the child. You only have the child 50% of the time, and the challenges are more about when you have them for spring break. So you have them for 14 days straight.
Okay, yeah, because then your circadian rhythms are thrown because you
Right.
suddenly have another human being in your midst whose
Yes.
wants and needs need to be taken into consideration.
Yes, or when you take him on vacation for you to Europe, and you're gone for 2 weeks, or you have him for a full solid month at
But to
summer.
Mr. Fix's earlier point, I'm wondering about just from your personal experience with any of the children's fathers or stepfathers, do you remember a time when you had a really bad disagreement about how you guys should handle one of the children?
Well, first off, I wanna point out all my kids are from my first they had 2 stepfathers. Um, and with the first my oldest was 6 when I got divorced. The youngest was 3 months. The middle was 3 years. So there wasn't a lot going on in the way of raising them yet, not the hard stuff. And we did not agree. He felt I was a helicopter parent. He felt I was overprotective. But it's funny because, and my daughter and I were just talking about this the other day. I was overprotective because he was dangerous.
Yeah,
And
oftentimes there's a reason for that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, he made me paranoid, and rightly so. Things happened. Um, and so I was very paranoid. So that was a terrible, terrible dynamic. Uh, so with the second one, there was really no um, problems. There was a huge, huge, huge problem that led to the divorce
But not
before
with the child
not
rearing,
with
right?
yeah, not with child rearing. And with the third one, as I said, 23 years, and uh, it.
After that initial thing, he was just kind of like, "Okay, you do your thing. I'll
Well,
back you up."
yeah, but I did insist that he engage in conversation with me
Yeah,
regarding how to discipline them or how to
sure.
respond to things. Um, but he didn't really like to. He would give his opinion, but he never again. Well, I can't say he never did. There was a few times he got a little over the top, and I had to remind him, like, "You're doing it again." And he would back down right away because I never said that. I wouldn't say that unless he truly, truly was. And he believed that. He trusted my instinct. So when I said it, he didn't get defensive. He just immediately stopped. He's like, "Yep, okay, fine. I won't say anything." And then of course I'm like, "I don't want you to not say anything. I want you to say something."
Yeah,
But
but now he's got a complex. So,
right,
okay, you know what?
right,
Yeah, it's fine.
right. So
Good.
most of the time, because of that, it was more, when you're lying in bed getting ready to go to sleep, and it's like, "Hey, by the way, this happened, that happened. What do you think about that?" He would definitely give me his
Yeah,
opinion, and we would talk about it. And so that whole in theory, it did work. It did work.
yeah.
Communication for
You've lived
me,
it. Yeah.
yeah, I did live it. And I'm not saying I didn't totally go off on him when he tried to kick my daughter out. And I put my foot down. I did. I wasn't even going to hear it. It basically came to, "You can get out. Um, Either she stays because she's got my grandchild, or you leave. Period." I
Oh, wait
you
a
know
minute. Let's rewind this conversation. Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
So yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But for the most part, yeah, communication is
So
everything.
I have never ever been a violent man, or even much of an angry man, even when I'm like confronted with horrible situations. Anger doesn't tend to be my go-to. Okay. But there was one time when my oldest daughter was relatively young. I was relatively young, maybe late 20s, early 30s, and we stayed up late watching a scary movie. And it wasn't a school night, so I thought it was cool. And for whatever reason, my ex decided to die on that hill. She does not need to be staying up this late. You do not need to be watching a scary movie with her. And we got into it, and I threw the TV remote at the TV and
Oh,
destroyed my own television and had to go
that's
buy
what
a
you
new
get.
TV the next day.
That's what you get.
So who do you think won that argument? I mean, the movie's over. There's no TV. So, but yeah, I mean, Mr. Fix It was absolutely right. You know, it's hard to watch a spouse or significant other do the discipline or not discipline when you think they should, or they're offering, you know, their version of what you should be doing with your own kid.
That's why communication is everything. And what Mr. Fix It says, if you guys can talk about each other's shortcomings or your idea of shortcomings, getting hurt over it,
Oh, and we
then
do
you're
that
much
constantly. That's part of our transparency mantra. Yeah.
exactly. That's what I was leading up to. He says you're much stronger than most people. That is what Mike and I practice. And I'm not saying that when we start our conversations, our transparency conversations, that one of us isn't getting hurt. I'm not saying that. What we committed to is to continue talking. And one of us might be like, and the other one has to keep talking. And, you know, you might take a breath or two and then keep talking. But we always continue. We never stop. And I have to say, I don't think I know we have never once had a situation where either one of us has continued feeling hurt or misunderstood or angry after we have talked. It is just, you know, part of that transparency in communication that we practice. And I'm not saying it's easy. It's not easy. But it's
No,
necessary.
we have our moments, don't we?
Yeah, we definitely do, but we don't give up. We keep at it. And it gets easier. We're learning each other so well that it definitely gets easier. And it's been difficult because since I got cancer, you know, my hormones are messed up and things are screwed up. So I'm not my normal, you know, just rolling with it about everything. I can tend to get upset, you know, like
But
my
then
feelings.
part of my responsibility as, you know, the person who loves her and who is her person is to recognize that, understand that, not only try to keep from going there so we don't have to worry about that, but then once we're there, realizing that that's probably why, at least part of why we're there, and maybe dial it back some, okay? Maybe
He
not.
actually has said more than once, more than twice, something to the effect of, this isn't how you normally are regarding these types of things. I know that you don't feel well. I know that you're just completely out of whack. You know, everything is upset, and it's okay. It's okay.
And I present that very carefully, right? Because you don't want to say you're wrong and I'm right because
Well,
you're sick, you know, or whatever.
but he actually, and don't get me wrong, he actually wasn't saying you're wrong and you're wrong because you have cancer brain. That's really not what he was saying. What he was saying was, because I might be right, but who knows?
You
But
may
the
be
way I
somewhat escalated right now, so we may want to step back from this.
right, that's the problem. Whether I'm right or wrong, that really wasn't the point. It was because I was escalating, and I typically don't escalate. You know, usually it's him that escalates and me that steps back and says, "Okay, you just need to be you right now, and I'll let you." And then he takes a few minutes and he comes back to me and says, "Yeah, you're right. You're right. Let's continue talking." But now it's me. Now it's me that escalates, and he's right. It's not me. It's not normal for me. Things are getting better.
Yeah,
Um,
it's funny though. It's like just when I get a handle on my shit, you're like, "Hey, you know, it's my turn, motherfucker." Oh,
yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
PG
But
show.
thankfully, I mean, Mike has had to put up with a lot of shit. And I think we're a really good a good couple to talk about the stressors of life and how you deal with it, um, and come out the other side still together and maybe better than you were when you went in. I mean, we've definitely been through it. We've been through the biggest challenges you can have in life. Um, and we're okay. We're better than okay. I mean, we just bought a place. Well, sort of. I did. uh, and so we're moving in together soon. So obviously things are better than it was when I got diagnosed. So we have definitely progressed in the right direction. Whereas what we've been through, and for a lot of people, and I hate to say it, but probably most, it would have tore them apart. So I think that, again, communication, it always comes back to communication. You have to, like Mr. Fixit said, he was pointing out that most people get hurt over their shortcomings being pointed out. And that is true. You have to be able to hear your shortcomings, or to tell your partner their shortcomings. And when they get upset, you have to be able to take their being upset and know that you're going to continue talking. They won't be upset after a while, and you're going to come out the other side stronger for having talked about it, and them understanding you're not attacking them. That, and they may take that as their shortcoming. You may just see it as, look, this is just you. It's not a shortcoming. You see it as a shortcoming. You feel attacked by me, and I understand. But that's not the point of what I'm doing. I'm doing this so we can understand each other.
Unless it is, if you've got somebody who's constantly criticizing you, that's a form of abuse. That is not love.
True.
That is not a good relationship. And that's something else that you really should sit down and explore. But he's right, in the follow-up comment that he had, it's one of the main causes of stress in a combined family. Absolutely. And then
what
after
you
that,
say,
Mr. Fixit talked about he's not doing the kids thing again. And I don't blame you, man. I would never change, the fact that I have a beautiful son, but I'm 50, man. We're not going to be running around the way I did when I was in my 20s. It's going to be a very different thing. So,
yeah. And you know what, Mr. Fixit, you know very well, better than most, that I said never. That was not on my list of wants, was a man with a child under 18. But then, I also say never. And that's one of the reasons I say it now very forcefully. Never say never. Never say never. You just don't know. You just don't know. And you're right, Mr. Fixit. It isn't always 50-50. Our relationship, Mike's and mine, has not been 50-50 since I got diagnosed, obviously. It's been him.
And in some ways, it's never been 50-50 with certain areas of our relationship. Although we both meet all of each other's compatibility boxes, some of those are 60-40, some of those may be 70-30, some of those are pretty close to 50-50, and some are struggling to get up to that 50% line, right? But that's what makes us us. It's what makes it beautiful and different and special. So.
And it's obviously something that doesn't bother us. I think in the scheme of things, in the grand scheme of things, I think that we actually enjoy even our shortcomings. That sounds terrible, but I actually think
at the end of every argument that we have, and in general, they've been getting way shorter, which I love. But at the end of every single one, what we always do is, what's the takeaway from this? Whether we do it at the very end or, 10 minutes later or the next day, it's like, did we learn anything? Did we gain anything from the long argument that we had? And the answer is always yes. We learned something, whether it's to not argue about that thing again, or maybe the way that you presented your arguments during that argument might not have been the best way to go about it. Whatever it is, we try, because a failure to communicate happens all the time in relationships, right? But it's only a failure. Failure is only failure if you don't learn from it. And that
Yeah.
includes arguments and lack of communication. Learn from where it went wrong and do better.
Yeah. I had this one guy that I dated, and the first thing everybody knows this about me. The first thing that I would do when I would meet somebody is I would ask them questions. And the easiest way to do it, and I keep telling people, because they're like, how do you ask those kinds of questions? I just play the 20 question game. I just tell them, I like to do this because you can ask anything you want in the context of the game. And it doesn't feel, you're not sitting over a table having a drink and interviewing each other. You're just having fun playing this little game. And they happen to be questions. And in my questions, I always asked about previous relationships. And I had this one man say, I just don't want to talk about previous relationships. I see no point in it. They don't define me. And he said all the stuff. And I told him, I said, that is a problem. And I said, look, I totally understand the way you're looking at it, and it's valid. But for me, being somebody who, as you, have been through relationships, have experience with relationships, I know what I want and what I don't want. I know what a good relationship for me looks like. And if you cannot talk about your previous relationships, I cannot get to know you as a person and how you deal with relationships and if you've grown from them. I actually want to hear I cheated, or I had a bad this, or I had a bad that.
But I learned from it, and I grew as a person, and I should never have done that. And I understand now. Yeah, instead of just, I don't want to talk about it, I'm not going to talk about it, there's no point, right? It's almost like going to a job interview and refusing to answer an important question from the interviewer because I don't go there.
Yeah, why did you get fired?
That's not a red flag at all.
Yeah, and that's why I told him, I said, you do not have to let that define you, although they define me. They define me in the way that I say I grew from them. I learn from them. They help to teach me what I want in a relationship, what I don't want in a relationship. You can look back at every relationship you've ever had and say, I liked that and I didn't like that. I would love to experience that again with somebody. There are things that relationships teach you in life. And if you're not willing to talk about them, then what is the thing they say about reliving history?
You're doomed to repeat it if you don't learn from it. Yeah. And that goes for kids, being an empty nester, whether or not you can handle somebody with kids, if you want kids, you don't want kids. Talk about all that stuff up front. Figure it out. And if they're your person, they'll work it out with you.
See, I told you that this topic had so many layers.
We went down so many rabbit holes. Thank you, Mr. Fix-It, for all your input. That was great.
Yes.
We had a couple of lurkers popping in and out, so thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
lurkers. How can they reach us?
Huh? Oh, okay.
How can they reach us?
First, I want to say thank you to Mr. Fix-It. I appreciated your conversation with us. And I'll see you on TikTok. So if you want to get a hold of us, I am Realtalkwithchristine at gmail.com. You can also go to my TikTok or my X account, or our Facebook group. And I also have my Patreon for After Dark. All of those things will be in the description of the podcast.
And you can reach me at shitlesspodcast@gmail.com. But I mean, why would you want to? You've got Christine, she just gave you multiple ways to reach her. So go for it.
You can talk to both of us at any of these places.
Yeah, it's not like I'm not going to hear about it. Please don't tell Mike, but yeah, okay.
Yeah. If you say, please don't tell Mike, I'm probably going to tell it.
I mean, come on.
I'm going to tell him anyway.
We've been very transparent about our transparency issues.
Yeah, you guys know better. All right. Well, this one went by really quick.
Yeah.
Really quick. You started playing the music, and I thought it's been 15 minutes. What are you doing? All right, guys. Well, I have had a good time. I hope that you have enjoyed this podcast episode. I have, and I feel like we can continue talking about it. We won't. We will come up with a new topic next week. If you have any suggestions, get a hold of us at one of these places, or just put a comment down under this video and tell us what you want us to talk about, because it appears we can just talk ad nauseum all night long. So we'll talk for you.
Stay unfiltered.
Bye, guys. See you next Tuesday. Hey.